Welcome to the Indie Opera Podcast.
Welcome to the Indie Opera Podcast. This is Peter.
This is Ashley Renee.
This is Walker.
And this is Chuck. Back in the board.
It's a great still of you, Chuck. Thank you for...
Yeah, just stunning.
It's really great.
Powerful presence.
Chuck, buddy, you're frozen.
No, it's okay. He's going to be a frozen picture for the rest of the show, which is
yeah.
his thing. So thank you for joining us. We'd like to thank all the people who watched our last show where we talked about driving while black. It was a real hoot. We premiered it on Facebook. We had like 180 people watch it live, and it's really great to have you there. So you can also see our show on YouTube, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcast streaming device. So please comment and subscribe on all the socials to help get the word out. Joining us today, our show... I said that wrong. Joining us today on our show, our singer and composer, KahhREE KF Jacques Laurent, who is playing the role of Figaro and composer of the music for the Rosina Project, a hip-hop rendition of the opera The Barber of Seville, or is that hip-opera? Anyway, we're also joined by Pinqy Ring, Puerto Rican rapper, educator, actor, speaker, U.S. hip-hop cultural ambassador, and performing the leading role of Rosina in the Rosina Project. And we're joined by George Cederquist, artistic director of Chicago Fringe Opera and the co-creator of the Rosina Project, and probably known to you all because he has a very well-known podcast as well called Opera Box.
Thanks for having us on the show tonight. I do all the things that Pinqy doesn't do, which is basically, I don't do anything.
I love your hair, Pinqy. Oh my God. It is fabulous.
It's not a wig either. People always think, is that a wig? I'm like, no, you can, but don't touch my hair though. But it's right.
You should have a line of wigs made that imitates your own hair.
Listen, you get 10% of that because that's a great idea. So
Thank you. I promise George will wear one.
Yes. So good. It will go just with the stash. Perfectly.
Yes.
So the Rosina Project, let's talk a little bit about this. Now, it's the Barber of Seville. First of all, it's from Rosina's point of view, which I think is wonderful. A feminist look at an opera that's normally looked from a very different point of view. But why the Barber of Seville? I mean, why did George, you chose the Barber of Seville, or how did this happen?
I did. It was back in 2014 when I was directing at the Chautauqua Festival. And I had a phenomenal amount of time on my hands. And I just started thinking about Rossini's music and the harmonic rhythm of his music, and how when you listen to the harmonies, they have this sort of driving, pulsing beat and progression. And for me, I actually originally thought of like electronic dance music and how that could overlap with something like the Barber of Seville. I wrote a contemporary English adaptation of an English literal translation of the opera. And my translation was absolutely dreadful, and I put it in a drawer hoping that nobody would ever find it ever again, until I met two phenomenal artists, neither of whom are here tonight. I'm kidding. The first one was KF Jacques, who was introduced by a friend of a friend. And KahhREE, tell the people how we sort of started to develop this thing before we added in Pinqy.
Wow. In its inception, I mean, I'm a trained classical singer and also a self-taught producer, and I had been doing a combination of opera and hip-hop for quite a long time. And George looked me up, got connected through a friend, and shout out to opera director James Marvel. And he came to meet me at the studio here, actually right here, and we discussed the possibility of a hip hop Barber of Seville. And I thought it was awesome. We didn't even have necessarily the characters or storyline figured out yet, but we knew exactly what we wanted to do and how we wanted to approach it. So
whose idea was it to look at it from Rosina's point of view? Like, why was that something that you thought of from the start, or did that eventually develop?
It really developed. Originally, the piece was called the Rosina Project, and it really was just kind of this literal adaptation. And it wasn't until I met Pinqy when I realized, like, this show needs to kind of be rebuilt, and it needs to be rebuilt around this character, and it needs to be rebuilt around this particular artist.
And for me, it was so interesting when I heard the music. I was like, okay, no, sis, we need to make you, we got to revamp this a little bit, because I'm not going to be a damsel in distress. I refuse. I am not that in my everyday. So that is on stage. And, I know it's acting, but I only act when I tell one of my boyfriends that I like him more than the other one. So and so I am a very proud feminist. Hilariously enough, I remember in college, someone interviewed me and asked me if I was a feminist. And I was like, no, I love men. But it was just because I had this idea that was ingrained about what feminism was, that it was like anti-men instead of it being pro-woman. So in this particular adaptation, I thought it was really powerful to give her her own voice, allow her to make her own choices, and that the choice didn't need to end with me picking one or the other. It could be me choosing myself in the end. And that was my favorite part about the whole project.
Very cool. Now, I love the sound world, and I want the audience to get a chance to hear this. So let's play a little bit so you can understand what we're talking about, what kind of sound world we're talking about. And let's just roll a little clip here.
The voices in my head don't seem to stop, don't seem to end. And up until this point, I bit my mouth until it bled. But I vowed to myself that I'll never do that again. Listen to my heart over my head. Yeah.
Now who the hell am I supposed to listen to? Trying to find love that's reposed and reciprocal. Hear my heart saying I'm not supposed to be cynical, not supposed to be difficult, free and be unconditional. Instead I'm here, caged bird under lock and key, and they wonder why I sing. I can't breathe with Bartolo, Jacques and me, but then I saw Lindoros, Lindo face up from the balcony. Figaro, how can you help? She gotta go, get out of this hell. I'm a woman with a voice, but who gonna listen? Who gonna whisper in the words that give life to my vision, huh? Cause being free is my greatest desire, to fly into the arms of my secret admirer. Am I good enough to take this chance? I heard a voice a while back, and it sang, Rosina, mi linda. Trust your heart, trust your dreams, huh? Yeah, pursue your truest version of love. Rosina, you're good enough. Hey, Rosina, mi linda. Trust your heart, trust your dreams, huh? Yeah, pursue your truest version of love.
What have you done before this, Pinqy? Did you do stories like this? I mean, have you been in theatrical type productions before, or
Absolutely.
what?
Definitely not at all.
So what was it like for you to be part of something like this?
Really exciting and incredibly affirming, because it came very naturally and easy to me, and I was really terrified about it, about memorizing lines, about acting, about just being in front of a brand new audience and how they would receive this, because it's very different than the original. But when I started getting into the flow of it, I realized that this is what I do when I'm shooting music videos, when I'm at performances. Like, I've performed for kindergartners and I've performed for senior citizens. And at the end of the day, they all love it, because it's about capturing your crowd and engaging them. And I think just when you're, gifted at what you do, people will see that and they'll embrace it. So it was very exciting for me, also very terrifying, but again, affirming in that it opened up a new world to me, because I was not a fan of opera because it felt like something that was just inaccessible. The first opera I ever saw was simply because I was in college and they gave us free tickets, and I was a broke college student and wanted to do something for free. That was my introduction to it, and I was like, this is awesome, but I never saw myself in it. It was when I went to see Hamilton that I realized like there is a stage and there are people who want to accept this and embrace this. I always downplayed myself as a hip hop artist. I would always say I'm a performer or I'm an educator, I'm a speaker. I never started with rapper first because everyone was like, oh, cool, but what else do you do? It was never anything that could stand on its own. And here it became something that could stand on its own and could take this, beautiful, beautiful opera and transform it into something that even young people can relate to and resonate with.
I think you opened the Hamilton box, so I'm going to probe that box just for a second. You guys, what you've created sounds like real, 100% authentic hip hop music, right?
Okay, I'm done here.
I'm done here. No, I'm saying this feels so real to me. I mean, I saw Hamilton. It was Broadway. You know what I mean? And everyone's like, oh, it's so hip hop. I'm like, it is. It just feels right to me.
So another one of those original conversations that George and I were having was, this thing has to be super duper authentic. We need it to be authentic, and we were not going to do Hamilton. And so
wow.
That was, so that's everything. And yes, Hamilton has blazed trails and possibly left a door open for Rosina Project. But Peter, you hit it on the nail on the head. It's like you listen to Hamilton and you know that it's a musical theater piece because of the instrumentation. Mm-hmm. And that's the exact way that I wanted to manipulate the instrumentation for the Rosina Project so that you knew that it was real hip hop. And it's funny you said that because actually Lin-Manuel Miranda actually did a recording after the fact of the Hamilton songs with more like beat heavy stuff. And it wasn't the same instrumentation, but I'm telling you, like, that is exactly what we were going for. It's so good to hear that.
Cool.
So if you were doing like a theatrical run, I mean, if you even would want a theatrical run for this piece, would you expand the orchestra, or would you just keep it, lean and mean like it is now?
In the best of all possible worlds, I think we would like to expand, but we really wanted it like a hip hop cipher. So we brought in DJ Oliver Fade, and he's on the ones and twos the whole time. Real DJ, real turntablist, and that's how we've done it for stage up until this point. I mean, obviously it can go as far as our imagination wants it to go.
But it is critical, as KF Jacques says, it is critical that DJ Oliver Fade is there. He's present. We know where their music is coming from. It's not outside of the box. It's not an orchestra. Like it's this man who is creating this and scratching and assembling in front of our very eyes. To synthesize what Pinqy said about acting, and KF Jacques said about the music side, is that authenticity is everything. And in putting the show together and conceptualizing it from the beginning, I had to make a choice, which was basically, are we going to hire actors to learn how to rap? Or are we going to find legit MCs and we're going to teach them how to act? And it had to be the second choice. There was no question. The creative brief for Pinqy and her colleagues who are MCs in the show was to say, for me to give them the original arias, the music, an English translation, and to say to them, can you put this in your own words? Can you put this in your own experience? Can you internalize this music, what we're going to do with this music and this text? And when you listen to something like Una Voce, which is Pinqy's version of Una Voce Poco Fa, you absolutely hear that.
What is the role of the audience in this show? Because I'm thinking about like the cipher, the hip hop, the culture, the environment, like, and in typical opera, the audience usually just kind of gets to be the bystander that's kind of sitting back and kind of taking it all in. But how do you all see the role of the audience? Do they get to still kind of sit back, or are they?
Well, I can talk about the sort of logistical side of it, and I'd love for Pinqy to talk about what it's like on the other side of the footlights, to be in the belly of the beast, if you will. But as Jacques said, it is set up as a cipher. So the audience, some are sitting on the floor, some are standing, some are on risers or angled bleachers behind them. By the end of the show, everybody is on their feet. The last quarter of the show is essentially this rap battle between the different men to figure out who is going to take Rosina's hand. She comes in, destroys everybody, and walks off into the sunset essentially by herself. And at that point in the show, everybody is on their feet, and in the before times is like jam packed in there. And maybe you're not being able to see everything, and maybe you're having to jockey for position a little bit. And it was that experience, at least on the audience side, that we were trying to go for. Pinqy, what's it been like to be in the center of it all?
It feels very much like a concert experience for me, and that's what's really dope about it, because I know when I went to see an opera, it was very much, I'm just a bystander. I'm just watching. I'm not a part of this. Whereas a concert, you put your hands up, you might be moving around with us. The other thing about it as well is that it's very true. We don't have all of the elements of hip hop, but we have a lot of them. And that's something that's very different from a Hamilton, where we have a beatboxer, we have a turntablist, we have MCs who are actually battling, and then we have B-boys and B-girls who are dancing as well. But it does feel very immersive. There was a time when we had like a dance that we had taught the audience. I'm not sure if we're going to keep that, because some people have two left feet. No judgment here, whatever. But it was a little difficult for us. And what's dope about it is that it's like trial and error. Like, we're trying things, we're figuring it out, we're tweaking it, we're making it better. But it's definitely an immersive experience where you are there. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is that even though this is a piece from, not this century, we use a lot of references. Like, I have Game of Thrones references in my raps. That's another thing that I think is really cool and makes it really different from other performances, in that we bring you to this time and this era as well, but we're also taking you back because there is some sort of old language in there as well. And I do Spanish in it. That was something that was really important to me, to bring my culture and my heritage. So there are times when I rap in Spanish as well.
And it's fire.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think you mean fuego. Yeah, it's an incredible experience. And to me, it feels like a concert. It feels like a live show, which is, I'm just waiting for very patiently in this day and age for another live show, and to just do this again with folks so that they can, feel it. It's very, you feel it in your soul. You're not just listening and watching, you're feeling it. You're reacting to it in the moment. You don't have to be quiet. In fact, we want you to be really loud, and we want you to oh no. That's exactly what we want from our audience.
So that, just so the audience that's listening knows, the plan right now is to do this at the beginning of August in an outdoor setting, in what is a rooftop or a park, or I wasn't sure.
The Chicago Park District has a program called Night Out in the Parks, which is run for years, which is where it brings Chicago's parks all around the city to life. And Rosina, in the past years, has toured the city. It's done a live show in a park, one on the north side, one on the west side, and one on the south side. 2020, that wasn't the case for obvious reasons. 2021, here we are, looking at a run of 3 performances. Again, one north, one west, and one south. Whether those are on basketball courts or on grassy areas, whatever it is, we make noise and we bring a crowd.
And is the crowd what's the combination of opera fans versus people who like other types of music? Would you say
it's everything? I mean, you have some diehard opera fans that come and see it and have said, this is something I've never thought I'd experience, and you have diehard hip hop heads who are loving it. And it's very interesting seeing those two groups of people socialize and dance together, because they really start to realize, like, we might have more in common than we have apart. And so again, back in 2019, it started to kick up these really great intersections of many different aspects to these cultures of music and race and socioeconomics that were not really intentional. Like way back when, conceptualizing it, that was really not necessarily part of the plan, and it has really grown, to me at least, in importance. I can't believe I've gotten this far hanging out with everyone tonight, not mentioning our choreographer. There's a street dance company called BraveSoul Movement here in Chicago, who I got to know in a roundabout way, and they were as instrumental in bringing this to life as Pinqy or Jacques were. They are a phenomenal crew of dancers. Kelsa K-Soul Robinson and her partner Brave Monk are choreographers on the show, and this piece lives as much in the dance realm as it does live in the sung and spoken realm as well.
I would add that there's different age groups as well. So one of the really cool things that I got to do as an instructor was bring my high school students to come see it. And so they, we did some sort of pre-research. I told them a little bit about it, but I really wanted them to just immerse themselves in it and see, can you follow the story? Do you understand what's happening? Because they'd never heard of Barber of Seville. They've heard of Figaro, right? But like the opera as a whole, they had no idea what it was. So it was really cool to see them there, interacting, loving it, and then being able to retell me the story in a way that makes sense, because that was really what we wanted to do. We wanted to use this music, but stay as true to the story as possible, then have the shift where Rosina chooses herself. And these young people were able to really pick that up and really liked it. Like, we all know that representation matters, but it's when we're living and breathing it and when they're seeing it on the stage and saying, I could do that. That's the only reason why I brought up Hamilton, is because I was like, I could totally be in this right now if they wanted me to. I was able to be loud and boisterous in the audience, even though there were some folks that were definitely looking at me like, sis, I need you to not. And I'm like, this is a rap concert right now. Like, you can't tell me anything. So it's really cool to see how different age groups can come together like that. But more importantly, how these sort of young people who have been marginalized for so long get to like take part in something that's new and innovative, but still holding roots with an opera that's obviously very, very famous.
So I'm going to get a little geeky here. So as far as the piece itself, because I always think about what is the object that I'm holding on to. With Mozart, you get a score and everything's written out and blah, 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 blah. This sounds like it was generated using the cast to create text, using a KahhREE to do a mix, but then how does it work with the DJ, the composer? Is there an outputted score that you can have another cast? Can this actually be moved to another opera company, or what is the piece itself that at this point?
Peter, I'll preface it by saying that Rosina was part of the Opera America New Works Forum, which was successful. We had some nibbles about taking the show to other cities, and what is an absolute given is that this is the Rosina family, and that I can't see anybody else performing this work. I don't think this is a piece, at least at this stage, that could ever be like licensed or shopped out. These MCs and dancers and producers have made this, and I think it has to be them doing it. In terms of the so-called deliverables, there's like a Google Doc with the text in it, and there's some MP3 files.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, how?
But it's pretty scrappy, man. It's pretty scrappy. Like, if someone's computer dies or a couple of people's computer dies, it's not good.
Wondering that, like, how much of it is? I always laugh because, like, I'm going to ask a question that students would probably be curious about too. Pinqy, I'm an educator right here with you. But I'm curious about how much of it is pre-written, like how much of it is like comes from like the songwriting component versus is there anything that happens sort of in the moment that's created right then and there? In
the rap battle, that's for some folks, because they're better freestylers, it's in the moment, and so it'll change every time. For some of us, it's pre-written because we have to get to whatever end result or goal. But in the rap battle, that's probably one of the funniest parts, and I've been begging them to write their raps because sometimes in freestyle it doesn't come out really great, and I'm like, that was trash this week, right? But then the next week it's like super fire bars, and I'm like, write that down. But I love it because it's funny. Like, we're laughing in the moment because we're like, that was a terrible bar. Like, what are you even talking about here? And then sometimes it's like, oh wow, that's incredible. So yeah, it's sort of like depending, and then the dance is also freestyle as well. So some of it is choreographed, but in some of the battle components, some of it is freestyled. And then I did want to also mention another deliverable that we're working on is to do the Rosina Project mixtape. So we'll record the songs and be able to get that out. Sort of like, I hate to keep bringing up Hamilton, but I love what they did with the songs that they brought on, like major label artists. They have Nas on there, they have Snow the Product on there, they have like lots of dope artists on there. So that's something that we're doing, but with just us as artists recording the songs and then releasing that as sort of a soundtrack. I think is going to be really cool and a dope way, because that's what you do. You leave a concert, you buy the CD, you buy the t-shirt, you buy the merch. So it does feel very much like a live concert. So that mixtape, hopefully we'll get that done soon.
That is really dope. I'm curious to know what the conversation is. I know that the opera world is really kind of grappling with, purist versus opening up and thinking about boundaries. And Pinqy, you're talking about all of those key things like representation and seeing yourself. But it's really interesting because it's not just seeing yourself in the physical representation of yourself, but seeing yourself in the artistic representation of yourself. And I'm really curious about what that conversation was like for you all in going into, was it even a consideration?
As I said earlier, for me initially, those sorts of questions didn't even cross my mind. I mean, again, this is like 2014, 2015, right? So like this country had not had the reckoning as publicly as it has had now. I think as I was bringing together the team, KF Jacques, Pinqy Ring, Kelsa K-Soul Robinson from BraveSoul Movement, I just knew that I just wanted great people. And to me, that was the most important thing. Who were these great people? And the piece, sort of superficially, I suppose, was about race. Like, I went down a path of looking at the city of Seville in the time that Rossini wrote this piece. And the city of Seville was this urban center where there were people of many different races all trying to get along, right? English and German people, native Spaniards, what at that time would have been called Moors, right? Who would come across the Mediterranean from Africa. And so I just started to realize that, like, are we in Seville in 1700 or are we in Chicago in the 21st century? Like, what is the difference here? The piece continued to develop, and it really shifted to this female-driven narrative of self-empowerment. And I think, again, with Pinqy as the central character, that's really where it ended up.
I haven't seen or felt or been met with resistance about it. I'm sure it's out there. Maybe it's just like George is just doing a good job of sheltering us. But coming on here, I was a little terrified. I was like, oh my God, are they going to quiz me on operas? And I don't really know anything about, And now that I met y'all, I'm like, oh, this is family. We're good. It's family. It's everything. I really was terrified, though. And so I think it's just like, I think George is doing a good job of just sheltering us from those people, because I'm sure that they exist. But those people also probably are not taking into consideration, stories from BIPOC people, stories from people of color, like, and that we can, like, that is what hip hop is innovative. It's taking something and making it something brand spanking new. And that's what this is. But do I feel like people are not going to like it? Probably. We haven't met them though. And we've had an array of people coming to the shows, from older folks to younger folks, different race, class, creed, gender, all of that. But I do, sometimes I'm afraid of that. I'm like, what if they think that, that we're not good enough, or we're just like ruining this opera? But that never happens, right? It's just like something that's just in your head, but never actually happens. I really was like, they're gonna like ask me about operas, and I'm gonna be like, "Duh."
We could quiz you on operas if you want.
No, I want to talk about hip hop.
Yeah. No, but I was about to
Yeah,
say.
we want to talk about hip hop.
No, but it is interesting. It is interesting that the idea that it's an opera and the idea that there's a quiz, and that opera is this thing where you're being tested.
Yeah, that's the
opera
elitism. That's the elitism of it.
Yes.
It's so amazing to have those walls broken down, but to realize how strong they are. I mean, that's such a trope for opera, and so many opera companies are trying to get rid of that storyline for so long, and it persists because they opera trafficked in it for so long, the exclusivity. I mean, do you now feel like that opera's welcomed you and that this is an opera and
or are you just think of it as being a totally new, different kind of show that has, nothing necessarily to do with opera?
I kind of teeter in the middle of it because sometimes I still feel like some opera buff is going to come and like rip me a new one. And then I'm like, well, I bet you can't rap like me though. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bit of both. But also on the other hand, where this idea that I had that opera was like stuffy and boring, like we reframed that to like, even my students thought that. They're like, we're not going to understand this. We're not going to know what's happening. Like, it's going to be boring. I'm like, trust me. They come, they watch it. They're able to retell this story. That is dope to me because that also combats this idea that certain people have that opera is boring or is stuffy or isn't, it can be inaccessible, but we're making it accessible. So I think it's somewhere in the middle where sometimes I feel like are we just being big frauds? And then on the other hand, I'm like, people love it. And that's what I try to like base what I'm feeling is on the reactions that we're getting. That's what any performer does. Like, is it a standing ovation at the end? Boom, then we did our job. So it really is challenging a lot of those notions, and then creating something new. And the beauty of it is because we have Jacques, who's actually singing opera in it, like we have that in there. You know what I mean? And when he goes there, everyone loses their mind. Like everyone, like as soon as he hits that, when he's singing that song and he hits that note, like even my students were like, ah! I'm like, can y'all please calm down and still show?
KahhREE, can you talk about that just for a second? Like the composition process and what Pinqy referred to, which is you as a legit operatic baritone, as a performer in the piece and an MC as well. Like, what is that journey?
Well, to talk about what that journey is sort of to, I guess, elaborate on what you guys have sort of been saying, which is the fact that it's really just a very organic blending of the hip hop and the operatic voice. So when I started doing Jacques as an artist and combining hip hop with opera, it was really about some, I wanted to make some dope beats. Like that was my thing. And then when I started combining opera with it, it was terrible. Like it wasn't a good idea in the beginning. But
when was that? When did you start doing that?
That was probably around 2010, maybe 09, something like that. I started combining the two of them. And I was traveling and singing opera, and I'd be in hotel rooms between rehearsals and performances, like, with the laptop and the headphones on and like doing beats and stuff like that. So Jacques didn't really come into fruition as an artist with hip hop opera until maybe around 2011 or 2012, and then it developed into something that was cohesive, something that I felt had some legs to it. And so that's how, really, as they always say, the old adage that it's all about preparation meets opportunity. That was my preparation. I was just experimenting with something new. And George, honestly, was the opportunity in the Rosina Project. And even Pinqy, I could count on one hand how many female artists I had the opportunity to work with, and certainly none of her caliber. So it was one of those things that just came together.
So
And
Pinqy,
when
and
you're writing it, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I love that you guys have that many questions.
no, it's okay.
Oh yeah.
No, I just love. I mean, I was just sympathizing with what Pinqy was saying to say that feeling you have where you're like, oh, am I legit? Am I? You know, every opera singer has these thoughts too. Like,
Yes.
they all go through the same.
Every artist.
Every artist. So your feelings about opera are not because you're not an opera singer. You are. It's that that's the process. It's the process of working with your art and becoming part of the community, which now you are. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as a quintessential operatic experience.
Yeah, I feel like we're finally getting to that. I totally empathize with you, KF. I mean, I'm an opera singer / R&B recording artist. It's like you have this, like, I say that to say, I don't know if you've grappled with that at any point, and you started like before me. I'm just like 3 years in, finally, like, it feels like kind of coming out to the world, like,
Yes.
oh, actually, like, I do this and I've done this whole time. And you kind of stay in this opera lane. I don't know if that's your journey, but like.
So I have a master's in classical voice and opera. So that was my journey. But by the same token, there are opera singers, there are professional opera singers that will tell you, they sat next to me during dress rehearsals, and like I was teaching them how to beatbox to like Mozart's Don Giovanni, So this has been a long time in the making.
But like, what is it like to kind of, I mean, it feels like this is like such a beautiful space to just kind of be your whole self and be your whole like artist self. But what was that like for you, even kind of putting yourself out there to be known, like outside of even like the rehearsal kind of space, like putting yourself out there to be found, if that makes sense, for someone like George to find you?
It's interesting, since Rosina Project, this was probably a few years ago that George approached me about it, but George is the first legitimate opera director that's approached me about composing something for the stage, and something that's not opera, something that's not strictly classical with a score, with staff measure lines and all that stuff. So it was, honestly, it was really liberating. And just like Pinqy talks about her trepidation with the genre mixing, I mean, imagine someone who, like, I can honestly say, and I don't mean this in a conceited way, but I mean it in just a very objective way, that I had a promising career. I have a raw talent. The skill came later when I was studying, but it was, I had invested so much. I invested so much into opera, legitimate opera, into these composers and what the acceptable interpretation of these operatic works were. So to kind of go rogue at any point is a real leap of faith. It's a real leap of faith, and I did it for many years without any recognition, and without any legitimization, basically. So, having George come in, and literally since then, doors have opened up, because I've just been able to explore like this new me, this new music and genre and production style and theatrical style, and so it's very liberating. That's the long version of it's very liberating.
It's been a rare journey, and it's an ongoing journey. The show is part of a residency through the Chicago Dance Works Foundation this summer, where we're continuing to develop the dance side of the piece. And it has been a journey, and sort of every step of the way for me is kind of the initial spark, I guess, if you will, and gathering these other team members. Every time I've tried to quit, something has happened, which has made me continue. Whether it was shoving the dreadful libretto in the drawer or not being able to meet a particular person. And every artist I've met on this production, I have said to myself, where have you been all my life? I really have. And I'm so astounded about the people that I have met doing this, and just so grateful and so blessed, and about putting myself in the hands of incredible MCs, producers, dancers who know far more about the genre of hip hop than I do. And like, I've loved hip hop as a child, and I've listened to it all my life, and just so blessed by this team.
I just think it's really interesting. I'm going to put it in the terms that we're using now, the idea of going rogue. Okay. The idea that this is how art forms move forward. Someone at every time there's been a great leap forward says, I'm going to go rogue. Whether it was Stravinsky doing the Rite of Spring, or Mozart doing his Empfindsamer where he sort of goes over the top. These people decided, I'm going to go rogue and do something that comes from me. So I think that the experience you're having is actually a really important experience for opera. And the idea of an artist digging into, it's just so weird that you have to feel that being yourself is going rogue. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, I'm getting in contact with my culture. Oh, this is so rogue.
Right.
Because the forms of music become so ossified, and it's hard to. Sometimes it's hard to find intersections, where things can cross over. I mean, like when you were writing it, KF, like how did you? I mean, did any of the musical themes actually come from the opera, or did you just, was most of it just original stuff that came from you?
Every piece that is in this has been inspired by Rossini, but it's not apparent. People who have a good ear, like you'll hear in Pinqy Ring's Una Voce, there's a sample of Una Voce Poco Fa, but that's not actually, it doesn't play out. You can just hear it a little bit in the background, and it goes out throughout the entire song. We have a Largo, and so for the Largo, there's a part where I do some of the Figaro patter from Barber of Seville.
Hey Figaro, you kill it with the clippers, bro. Hey Figaro, you kill it with the clippers, bro. Hey Figaro, bravo, bravissimo. Figaro, hey Figaro, you kill it with them clippers. You kill it with them clippers. You kill it with them clippers. Yell me at me. Say my name. Say it loud. Let's run the game. Hey Figaro. Hey Figaro. Hey Figaro. Make way for the barber. Dawn's cuts look harder. Some call me a martyr. I'm just the Barber of Seville.
So you go, it's like straight from the rap, and then it goes Figaro, Figaro, bravissimo, Figaro, Figaro, bravissimo, kill him with tools, you kill him with tools, you kill him with tools when you fade him up. So like kill him with tools when you fade him up is like he's the barber, so he's got these tools that he's fading people up with. And so
nice.
That I changed the pattern a little bit, but it's the exact same idea with the pattern from the actual opera. So, and there's a lot more where that came from. Everything is sort of inspired. Our Alma Viva is a fantastic character, and he actually wrote the text for what we call, I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much, but what we call the recitative. So all of our recitative is to beatbox, whereas our arias are to Jacques beats. So all those recitatives are basically raps to beatbox, and it's funny, Peter, you mentioned Mozart, because I was thinking just now about this Sprechstimme, right? From Magic Flute. And like, so Mozart basically did this way back then when he's like, okay, everybody cut the music.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's like, I mean, recitativo, it's kind of like a rhythm section almost, you know? They're just like, you know, they're just, it's like more interesting rhythmic patterns and, you know, more about the beat and just, you know, driving forward. So
it is, yeah, there's definitely moments where it has that sort of Singspiel abduction from the Seraglio sort of quality to it. Walker, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to go back briefly to what Jacques was saying about our beatboxer. Yuri Lane is a member of the family who was brought on Pinqy, I think, through you. Am I right?
Yeah. So when I do shows, he comes and does shows with me as well. And so this was like, it was just all naturally flowing. He's incredible. He's actually a beatbox harmonica player.
If we should manage to speak, I must do so on the sneak. Yes, I can't let y'all peeps get a peek, or you'll know that I've gone from a camp to a freak. Ooh, I can't explain what she done to me. Nevertheless, I am sure she don't work for me. Who is this cat making noises up under me? Laughing and clapping, what's happening? I'm not that sure, but his presence is pleasant and buttery quick.
Blow your mind. Blow.
What?
Showstopper.
And so the sections of recitative, which on this show largely were written by another MC called Mikey to the P, are accompanied entirely by Yuri Lane's beatboxing and harmonica playing. And he's also a consummate actor, and he's a brilliant clown. I mean, the character he's developed is essentially this homeless man who travels the stage with a shopping cart in which is all of his looping machine and his mic and his speaker. And he's a clown straight out of the Commedia dell'arte. He really is. Again, like everybody on this show, I show me another. I don't know where you would find another.
So copyright wise, this would be a pretty complicated show because, like, I mean, all everyone has like written their own text, and I mean, musical elements have gone into it, and you know, it's great that it's such a tapestry of all these different talents.
I'm like, is this registered? Like, is this more of like a BMI ASCAP situation?
What is
sounds like.
Yes, and yes, all of it.
Didn't we, KahhREE? Because we were going to be on a TV show here in Chicago.
Yes.
We had to register it under ASCAP, and that was a nightmare too. Because
all of it.
That's the reason why we need to keep it within the family, because I don't want no other chick rapping my rap.
Wait, but this is a good question. This is interesting, and you don't have to disclose it, but this is really interesting because this gets into a different world. Because if you're registered, did you have to do splits? Like
Yes.
if other people were?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow,
That's intense.
Like
that had to be
music
intense.
industry stuff, like music industry stuff, even though it's theater and it's wild.
That's dope. Like I'm excited about that.
And I mean, for me, it started my like journey into like my last album. I thought I registered it, but I didn't. Oliver Fade, our DJs, actually does royalties and all of that stuff. So then now he's actually producing my album, or going to help me produce my album this year.
Let me tell you guys, I'm just going to interrupt you, Pinqy, because DJ Fade, I got to take credit for this, because DJ Fade was back with me back in the day. And I was shopping my album to some record labels for Operatronic, for some hip hop opera stuff for Jacques. And that's how I met DJ Fade. And he started doing like my DJ stuff. And he's like a major Chicago house head. And he's done house albums and hip hop albums, everything. And so when George had suggested for Rosina Project that maybe we'll have a DJ on stage, and I'm like, I already got your guy. So like we brought Oliver on, and then before you know it, Oliver and Pinqy started collaborating on stuff. And then like now I see Oliver on stage more with Pinqy Ring than he is with Jacques.
Wait a minute.
but it's dope. I love it. It's all like Pinqy was saying, it's all one big, like seriously, one big family. Like we are all connected somehow beyond the stage, beyond the Rosina Project. And it's wonderful because it makes the Rosina Project, it heightens the level of the artistry a lot.
So I was wondering if that feeling of going rogue, do you now feel that you're now sort of moved into the mainstream and that you're being accepted and that the reception's been warm?
Yes, I think that's all true, Peter. I feel like, it was a long time, like it really did take a long time, like many years of wondering, what bills would be paid or what investments were actually worth it. So it's one of those things where you just got to have faith. And if you're moved by what you're doing, sometimes all the naysayers and all the bad experiences can't outweigh that feeling of that you've contributed to the world somehow, that you even if, how they say about artists not getting famous until they pass away or something like that. Like even then you're still satisfied with that because you're like, yo, that's my mark. Like I left my mark on the world,
I'm just really just so excited. First of all, the fact that there are splits that went into this show and the fact that because that's residual, that matters. Yes. And that is really having an artistic and ongoing presence, and that matters.
Yes.
So much. That's industry matters. Your name is on. So anyway, that's exciting. But I think what really excites me about it is the non-tokenism of the culture in this, and that it feels like this was really birthed out of the culture and not incorporated the culture,
not misappropriating the culture.
Exactly. And then and kudos to you, even George, in having and directing this, and the way that it seems like you have given everyone their space and their say and honor their voice.
Yes, I mean it's a great lead, Ashley. Authenticity is everything, right? And I found myself time and time again just saying, this is the thing that I need. I don't know how to do it. I'm totally out of my depth. Who can I find that is great to work with, is a great artist in their own right, and is going to take my idea and make it better and make it utterly authentic, and how can I just kind of lift them up?
Very cool. Now, I just wanted to ask about the future of this piece, and do you have plans of moving? Are there other plans in the works for other operas or for other pieces, or what's looking ahead? What's happening?
Yeah, so Night Out in the Parks is slated for this summer in Chicago. We have some nibbles from opera companies in the future to take the work on tour and perform it there. We've drafted a script for a feature-length music video, essentially, to try and capture this on film and shoot that in Chicago. That would be authentic as ever, and capture the beauty of this city and the beauty of our artists and our family in this city as well. It's amazing to me that 7 years on, Rosina is still expanding and still developing. And I, for one, I don't think it's finished, not least by the work that we're scheduled to do this summer. I think it's got a long way to go, and to share that with folks every step of the way.
How does the parks performances work? Do people is it free? Like anyone can just show up and hear it and go to it, or do you have to buy a ticket in advance, or how does it work?
Typically in the past, it's always free of charge. It's a gift from the city of Chicago to its residents. And this year, I mean, the physical seating is more spread out. Numbers are limited. The Park District has done its due diligence. But in years past and in years future, I mean, it's bring the noise. Bring the noise, and people flock, and it happens.
Cool. And now tell me, Pinqy, where can we find more of your work outside of this, and how can our audience find out more about you?
Okay, let me tell you where you can find me. Oh,
She's ready. She's ready.
my favorite subject, okay, myself. So you can find me at www.pinqyring.com. I'm on all streaming platforms. At Pinqy Ring on Instagram, Pinqy Ring on Clubhouse. I'm all over. Send a smoke signal, send a carrier pigeon with some money, hopefully.
Spell Pinqy, but spell Pinqy for our listeners.
Yes, absolutely. PINQYRING. Just remember Q for Queen. Ow.
KF as well, right? Where can we?
Yeah, KF.
And KF.
Mine is harder to spell, actually. So,
but also with a Q.
Right. It's KFJACQUES, the French way, no dots, .com, KFJacques.com. I'm on every social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. But you can find it all on KFJacques.com, and including the Rosina Project and some other projects that I've been working on.
Yes. Both
And
your websites are really dope, by the way.
I just copied Pinky's website.
They're so great.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
Even the
everyone
gigs,
does.
even Pinky's gigs, I just copied all that.
On Instagram as well. The Rosina Project is on Instagram, so please make sure you follow us there.
Yes. Thank you, Pink.
And George, you're the host of Opera Box Score, which is like this mega cultural institution that everyone should know about already. But other than there, are there other ways to encounter your work?
I love Indie Opera Podcast, by the way. Y'all do just such a fabulous job, and you've been doing this forever, and just kudos to you.
It's been 10 years, man.
That's
right.
yeah,
That's
wow.
all right.
That's wild.
10
That is
years,
really wild.
man.
I'm so allergic to social media, like I don't know how to use it or do any of that. So
That's hilarious.
ChicagoFringeOpera.com. That's just go there, and there's hopefully something there.
And Chicago
George,
Fringe
you
Opera.
have a website. Did you know that, George?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I did know that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
He's not that.
But I really
Who's asking?
I
Wait
really
a second,
appreciate
wait a
that,
second.
Ashley.
Yeah, and the city of works. People should check out City of Works, because that looks like a really interesting project. And you've got some new episodes coming up for that, right?
That's right. City of Works is one of our pandemic projects at Fringe,
Yeah.
which is 9 sort of world premiere site-specific operas kind of hidden around Chicago. And the final installment comes out on the last Friday in May. So it may have already come out.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the show.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I was watching some of the episodes. They're really, really cool. And if I'd love to find out how there's all these different creative teams. It must have been so much work to put all those together. So it looks terrific.
Thanks, Walker. Yeah, it was a total nightmare to do.
good things are, aren't they?
Yeah.
This is a common story during COVID, by the way. Every opera company I talk with is like, creating.
Yeah, but you
good-
forget about it when you're talking about the piece, and you're like, yeah, and then this is why I did this, and you forget everything about the challenges. It's like art,
Yep.
It is art, but I'm saying it's that proverbial art experience.
So,
Right.
so KF, Pinqy, George, we are so glad that you are on our show, and we really appreciate all the work you're doing. And trust me, you're legitimate. You're not outsiders. You're performers, and we love it. So
Thank you,
so
Peter.
much. Yeah, woohoo!
Peter says you're okay.
And if I say it,
Take that to the bank.
If Peter says it, then Walker and
Take it and
Ashley
run
agree
with
as
it.
well.
So you can't tell me nothing because Peter said. They'd be like,
Right.
"Who
Peter said. Just say Peter said. Yeah.
Once Chuck says we've made it, then I'll accept it.
Yeah. Chuck is the ultimate judge. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being on the show. It's been a real treat, and I look forward to seeing the video, because I'm not sure I can get to Chicago. I'm not sure I'm traveling yet, but it would be really lovely to see that video as well.
Yeah, make the full length. That's going to be so cool. I can't wait to see that.
I might have to make my way out there. That's one of my favorite cities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And whoever's listening that has some money, make it happen for us. You're literally
Happen. Come on.
at its
Let's do it.
inception, like,
Visual.
give us some money so we can make this happen. Like, we need to let us go rogue even further. Like, give us some money so we can go rogue, please.
Well, thanks guys for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
And thank you everyone for watching the Indie Opera Podcast. Please check us out on iTunes and on YouTube and on Facebook. And we'll see you on the next show.
We hope you enjoyed our show. Please give us a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or audio podcast feed on Apple Podcasts. And if you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback of any kind, please let us know by emailing us at comments@indieopera.com. Help us to make the future of opera brighter and bolder with a tax-deductible gift today. Donate to the Indie Opera Podcast on our website, Facebook, or on Patreon for special benefits. This episode of the Indie Opera Podcast was recorded on Zoom with co-hosts Walker Lewis, Peter Szep, and Ashley Renée Watkins, and our special guests KahhREE Laurent, Pinqy Ring, and George Cederquist. Our show is created with the support of Business and Operations Manager Brooke Larimer, Associate Producer Chuck Sachs, Jonathan Blaylock, PR Consultant, Gregory Moomji, Web Correspondent, and Rosha Krian, who created our theme music. This episode was edited by Peter Szep. Thank you for watching!